Yes. Today or yesterday we talked about, and it was devastating news, that Roscoe's Chicken and Waffles was going bankrupt, but they're not. The parent company is going, and Roscoe still does fine, so it's going to be around, right?
Yeah, as far as I know, everything I can see, obviously, this is business ploy. You gotta, Roscoe's Chicken and Waffles, if you hadn't heard the story, their parent company, East Coast Foods, Inc., filed for Chapter 11, and they won bankruptcy protection. And I think it's just that, protection.
Yeah, it's a reorganization. It's not a liquidation.
Yeah, this comes months after the company was ordered to pay $3.2 million to Daniel Beasley. So that's close to $1.7 million to Beasley, and then he was also awarded about $1.5 million in attorney's fees. So that's how it gets split. But that's a pretty huge chunk of money.
It is. And what happens during a Chapter 11 is the federal judge sits down, the bankruptcy judge, and looks at the debts and looks at the income and turns to Beasley and say, hey, how about taking half of that? Or how about taking a quarter of that? And here's the payment plan. So that's what happens with all the debtors, or all the creditors. All right,
but this Long Beach chain, is super popular. Yeah, Snoop Dogg. As a matter of fact, Snoop Dogg last night or the night before was stopped by TMZ on the street coming in or out of somewhere. And they told him he hadn't heard yet, because Snoop Dogg has gone there many, many times, has made it known that he loves this place. And he was visibly shaken when they told him. He's like, what? He goes, I'm going to have to buy it, and I'm going to name it Snoop's Chicken and Waffles. So a lot of people, Magic Johnson has been there, a lot of famous folks. The president in 2011 made an unexpected stop to Roscoe's Chicken and Waffles to get some food. And it's just this great institution. It shows up in films. It shows up in songs. So I started thinking about it's such a weird combination.
Yeah, you think about fried chicken with waffles, but then it's with the syrup and sweetness works with a lot of stuff.
And that's a really popular combination now, but it's been around for a while. So let's go back a little bit. Tori Avey, who's at thehistorykitchen.com, she does great work, a great blog, really looking at kind of the history of food. But going through that and some other places, culling some information, basically you've got fried chicken showing up on the scene in its earliest form as a fricassee, which is like a battered meat. But and although they had other meats that they would batter and fry, it seems that chicken started winning out and became this thing, got pushed and pushed and pushed, and people started liking it. By the 1300s, fricassee starts showing up in cookbooks. Now, fricassee, the word itself is a French word. It's kind of two words combined that mean fry and to break. And it starts popping up all over the place, including First Lady Martha Washington. She had 2 recipes in her recipe collection for fried chicken. And so you slowly see this pattern of fried chicken.
Oh, fried. Who does not like fried chicken?
But it's weird to see how things become popular. One of the ways, Bill, that fried chicken became popular was during the Civil War. It was one of the few foods that loved ones, wives and whatnot, could send to the soldiers in the battlefield that would keep, because it was fried and it was salty, and so it would keep longer than other foods, so they could send the chicken out there. So imagine now you've got this food that's being sent with love. You're in the battlefield. You're receiving it. It's bound to create an emotional connection, and it did, and it proliferates from there. 1881, African-American cook Abby Fisher wrote a cookbook called What Mrs. Fisher Knows About Old Southern Cooking, and her recipe is basically kind of the prototype for the quintessential Southern fried chicken.
And I'm sure you have it. I don't know if you've been to the Midnight Mission, and you've been to where they have the homeless.
Sure.
Every Friday, it's fried chicken, and that's why that's why they call it the battered chicken shelter.
It's a great comfort food, you moron. What's the matter
That
with
wasn't
you?
Bad.
No, it's horrible.
Oh, man.
Okay, so you get the advent of automobiles, roadside diners, becomes a real popular thing. 1940s, Harlan Sanders, of course, is whom?
Kentucky Fried Chicken.
Yeah,
Colonel Sanders. Self-imposed colonel. Was never a colonel any place, anywhere.
No, but he looked good.
Yeah.
And he has that signature recipe. 1952, it really becomes a household name. So you've got that history. Now you go down the pattern of waffles, and they're really strange. There was this time in the Middle Ages, obviously religion is at full fervor, and they made these communion waffle irons. and they were 2 plates, about 4 inches or so, 2 plates, and they had these long metal rods attached to them, and they'd heat them up.
Sounds like a modern, non-electrical waffle iron.
It is, very much. They stayed the same, but it was mostly flat. It would have designs carved in them, religious designs. And what would happen is they'd use water and flour, very simple. They'd put that in there, and they'd heat them, and then they'd press them together, and they'd make the wafers. Well, for whatever reason, you had bakeries that began making these wafers to compete with the monasteries, and very waffle-esque, except they were simple, the water and flour. And it's basically making a cake between 2 heated surfaces. Pilgrims are responsible for bringing the waffles to America in 1620 after discovering them at a brief stop in Holland. So now you start seeing a different type of waffle coming in. Dutch immigrants obviously popularized the dish in New Amsterdam, which, of course, later became New York.
Mm-hmm.
So all this,
you know what? We got to take a break because I want to come back and we'll do more. I haven't quite made up my mind yet whether we're going to continue with this subject because, as you know, I am waffling. That's 2. That's 2 this morning.
That is horrible.
Thank you.
It's really bad.
I only do that around you.
When you take pun dumps on my segment.
I will ask Neil if he got my email.
I did. So we'll get into the combination of how it became chicken and waffles, and also I'll tell you why we like them so much, that savory sweet, and what that means.
Got it. We'll be right back with Neil and the Fork Report. Oh, and we're not going to do the pun on that one at all. That is not going to happen.
KFI AM 640.
KFI Handle here on a Thursday, March 31st, last day of the month. And tomorrow is the first day of the month. God,
wow, you're like a genius.
You know what?
With
I am. It's really so sharp this morning, particularly. All right, Neil Saavedra of the Fork Report heard tomorrow from 2. Saturday from 2 to 5. I'm so used to you coming in on Friday.
Not anymore. Thursdays.
I know. No,
Thursdays 9:30.
You know why? Because I'm looking up at our clock / date machine, and there it is, right there.
It's a clock.
Well, it's a clock with a date, so it's a date machine.
Mm-hmm.
Excuse me. Look at that. Do you see a date there?
Yeah.
Is that a machine?
Of sorts.
Okay. Back we go. More of the Fork Report, if you will. We're talking about chicken and waffles because Roscoe's Chicken and Waffles, a parent company, has just filed for bankruptcy, Chapter 11 protection. But Roscoe's will no doubt stay open because it is a profitable endeavor and
it's beloved. It's part of the skyline here in Southern California.
So the history, we just went through the history of waffles and a little bit of...
We did chicken, fried chicken, waffles. They come together. Pennsylvania Dutch country during the 1600s had a concoction of chicken and waffles. It wasn't fried, but it was kind of pulled chicken with gravy on top of waffles. It's interesting when you go through this.
That's not chicken and waffles.
But you can see how the pairing slowly gains favor. What you know today was really came to be in 1938, the Wells Supper Club in Harlem, New York. So you have jazz musicians that would get off of their gigs late at night, and it was too late for dinner, too early for breakfast, and they would get these combinations of chicken and waffles at the Wells Supper Club, affectionately just known as Wells. And they'd go there, and you've got people like Sammy Davis Jr., Nat King Cole, who I believe actually was married there, would frequent. You fast forward to 1975, Harlem native Herb Hudson opened Los Angeles restaurant dedicated exclusively to the pairing Roscoe's House of Chicken and Waffles.
So how did Herb somehow become Roscoe?
You know, I don't know. I don't know where Roscoe's... I do know that he tenaciously holds that trademark and was going to open in Chicago, and someone else opened a Roscoe's in Chicago, and he sued them.
And should have won, did he?
But it did win, but in New York, someone opened one in New York, and he didn't sue because he goes, I'm not going to open one there.
But when you think about look how absolutely generic that term has become. When I mention chicken and waffles, what's the first thing that comes to mind?
It's
Roscoe's.
Yeah, of course, absolutely. Now, here's the thing, and I want to do this quickly because I know that one of the twins is going to come in here to talk about the show today. But we've got 5 primary tastes, right? You've got sweet, salty, sour, bitter, and then the newest one is umami, which is Japanese for savory, for delicious.
And a hamburger place down the street.
Yes, based on the same name. So we taste, these tastes have importance. They're not just for pleasure. The sweetness is to tell us that, hey, that's going to be a carbohydrate. That's good. That's going to give us fuel, right? Sweet actually is a good thing. Bitter was to protect us. If it was bitter, it was probably bad for you. So we'd know that it's going to be potentially damaging. You don't want to taste it. Well, salt says, hey, you're providing yourself with nutrients. This is a good thing. Salt is the one thing that you have a taste bud for, that there's nothing else on earth except salt that will, satiate, right? So, but it's not just a nutrient. Salt's interesting because it's a flavor enhancer. Because we're omnivores and we eat a lot of different things, we can get bored very easy if we eat the same thing over and over. Salt allows us to layer flavoring. It actually enhances sugar and makes it taste sweeter, more sugarier. So scientists are finding that the sweet and savory and salty is a great combination because it entertains the brain to where we don't get bored with any one of the flavors.